Good morning everyone, Gadget here in the Henry studio for another first look, and this time we're looking at the new Sony RX100 Mark VII. There's a ton of technology packed into this, so let's get into it. Shortly after our time with the Sony a7R IV, we were given a sneak peek at the RX100 Mark VII, and there's a ton of new features that are jam-packed into this body. The RX100 series has been something that was synonymous with the latest and greatest in Sony technology in the most compact form possible. It's in this class of these premium 1-inch sensor compact cameras that, while it isn't as hotly competitive, definitely something that Sony isn't taking lightly. In fact, they're throwing just about everything they have at this new iteration. And I'll start with this. Yes, they even included a 3.5mm jack in this camera. Everyone's been talking about it, but you gotta give them a little bit of credit because there's not a lot of space inside of this camera. So to fit that in and not compromise any of the other features, kudos to them. The Mark VII has a stacked 1-inch CMOS sensor that shoots up to 20 megapixel images, and it's something that's significantly larger than your mobile phone, but the product itself is not that big. It's actually very pocketable. We've seen this lens before, but I'll say it again, it's a 24 to 200mm zoom in this tiny body. What makes this even more special is that this lens is coupled with an amazing autofocus system that you've seen in the premium Sony A9. Yes, you get face detect, but also eye detect in both stills and video. But it doesn't stop there. The camera can shoot up to 20 frames per second with zero blackout, or it can shoot 7 bursts of 90 frames per second. Quite impressive, again, in a package this small. You may not use this all the time. Even that 20 frames per second is very seldom in use depending on what you're shooting. But the fact that you have that really does come in handy in unique environments. Like if you happen to be at a batting cage, for instance. All right, we're here in what seems like an indoor bunker. It's actually an indoor batting cage. And what better place to test out how capable the burst shooting is, the slow motion recording is, than in an environment like this. Let's go ahead and play ball. All right, it's been a while, but I mean, how hard could it be? All right, so we just wrapped up our time in the batting cage. In my quick time testing these high frame rate options, and this is definitely not safe right now. It's tricky. It's tricky to get the shot that you're going after. A lot of times it's gonna require a lot of patience. So it's not something that you can just turn on, get your shot. It's gonna take a lot of practice. But for still life, for maybe moving bodies of water, that kind of stuff, the slow motion works fantastic. So I gotta give a shout out to Mr. Singh here, a friend of mine who actually gave me plenty of time in the batting cage to practice my own swing. So I felt kind of good, I felt comfortable in there. What do you think of my swing?
In all honesty, in all my years of baseball, that was terrible.
Oh, all right. So maybe I'm not cut out for baseball anymore. I mean, in 15 minutes, I already feel something odd in my glutes. Well, with that out of the way, let's go back to the studio and dive deeper into this camera. The 4K recording on this is really impressive. There wasn't a lot of rolling shutter that we noticed, and it could shoot up to 120 frames per second in full 1080p. You also get the option to shoot just under 1,000 frames per second at a lower resolution, which is quite bananas. We tested this out, and the footage looks pretty good. It's not gonna work in all instances. You're really gonna want that direct sunlight or maybe 2 really powerful spotlights on your subject. But to be able to capture interesting B-roll in certain environments can work out really well. And again, you might use this sparingly, but the fact that you get that option in a package like this, depending on what environment you find yourself in, could prove to be really useful. You also get a nice viewfinder where you just flip the switch and it pops right up. It also turns on the camera for you. Very James Bond-esque. I love just walking around with this thing and using that to actually turn on the camera and bring it up to my eye and start shooting. Unlike the APS-C and full-frame mirrorless market, the 1-inch sensor premium compact market is not that hotly contested. But the fact that Sony's putting this much effort and innovation into this space and in a package like this no less, that they gotta get credit for. Everyone's talking about the mic jack that you finally get on this thing. And it is important because now you have something that truly is a game changer for content creators, for YouTubers. Whether you're into beauty, ASMR, or lifestyle, whatever it may be, to have a package like this makes an aggressive offer against some mirrorless options. Again, not having to worry about lenses, the portability of it, the autofocus, be able to lock into your face, into your eye, and track you accurately. Have all of that married to an amazing system that captures fantastic images and really, really good video. That's a big deal. And though you may not have those really wide apertures, we're talking about a range on this camera from 2.8 to 4.5 because of the zoom, it's still something that may be limited to your creativity. There's still a lot you can do with a package like this. There's also a pop-up flash that works. I will say, talking to some people that are interested in this product category, they like the fact that you can actually tilt that flash. So in a room like this where there's a white ceiling and if you want to take a quick portrait, you can actually tilt it back, take that image and have the light actually bounce off a little bit. Is it gonna replace your high-end speed light? Absolutely not. But the fact that you can do this is nice. Handling the camera isn't that difficult. I will recommend though, it's a little slippery on the front, so you're probably gonna wanna get some sort of friction sticker that you can put on the front so you have a little bit of a better grip in your hand. But again, we're talking about portability, so you can't complain too much about the ergonomics on this. I like the fact that you still have that manual control ring on the front of the camera. It's something that makes the shooting experience a little bit better. Though there were a few things I wish they changed. That UHS 1 SD card slot, I wish it was a UHS 2 slot so you can actually have something that keeps up a little bit better with the 20 frames per second or even the 960 frames per second high-speed footage. The battery and memory card door, this is a small thing, but I wish it would just lock in as opposed to having to close it and then push the latch to actually have it lock into place. The high resolution back LCD is fantastic. Looking through it to take images is a pleasant experience, but I will say there is a bit of polarization in effect there. So if you have fancy sunglasses, you won't be able to see anything if you have them on. So if you find yourself in Santorini in this beautiful vista and you bring your camera to take that picture, you're gonna have to take your glasses off to capture that image, unless you switch it to portrait mode, in which that effect is negated. And the tripod mount, why did you do it off center, Sony? Why couldn't you just move it closer to the middle so it doesn't actually block the battery card door? Again, small, minor things I think would have made for an even better presentation of this RX100 Mark VII. All right, so it wouldn't be a Sony video if I didn't bring in Patrick Chan from Sony Canada, our resident Sony expert, to talk about this thing. I got a couple of questions for you. One, people online, they're talking about how this camera can only do 4K up to 5 minutes and then it turns off. Is that the case?
Well, yes or no. By default, your auto power off temperature is set to standard and it is 5-minute recording limit. But if you set that setting to high, you can actually record quite a lot longer. It really depends on your ambient temperature. The cooler it is, the longer you can record.
Okay, so that's good to know, especially if I'm doing a lot of YouTubing and a bright sunny day like this, I don't have to worry about this thing stopping on me.
Nope.
The other thing I want to talk to you about is the stabilization of this thing. It's pretty crazy. There's the stabilization, 4 steps of stabilization built into the lens itself, optical.
Yep.
And then they have active stabilization.
Yeah.
Now, what is that, and is that going to do anything weird to my footage?
No, it's actually going to make it much better. We actually have 3 levels of stabilization if you think of it that way. First, optical, then you have a 4K active mode, and then if you import all this video clips to your cell phone with the movie edit feature on our Imaging Edge software, you can even stabilize it even further. You can make your footage look like you're on a gimbal without actually using a gimbal.
Wow, that's actually really impressive. The last thing I gotta ask you, I like turning on this camera by flipping the switch and the EVF going up, and I like pushing it back down to turn it off.
Okay.
Will I break this camera by doing that over and over again like James Bond?
We've designed it to do like this, and of course our quality is top notch, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, this is Gadget from the future, Patrick from the future. Let's go back in studio. In my brief time shooting with this camera, I was left in awe. To have all these features packed into such a portable package is quite impressive. I've said it before and I'll say it again, you gotta give them credit for really pushing the envelope in this product category. All in all, the Sony RX100 Mark VII stands head and maybe even shoulders above a ton of cameras in this space. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to learn more about this camera, we have the link in the description, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think about this camera. Did Sony do enough to impress you, or are you not even looking at this space? Let me know in the comments below. But before you go, be sure to subscribe to the channel, follow us on Instagram, and turn on notifications so you know when a new video comes out. My name's Gadget, and I'll see you next time.